From legends about George Washington to historical monuments, here are the biggest lies told in history. But first, we'd like to thank Atomic Blast Gaming for leaving us this comment on our 11 most iconic structures video. We're glad you enjoyed watching, and leave us a suggestion on a video you'd like to see in the future, and maybe we'll feature you in an upcoming video. Number 10. Columbus discovered America. Many children will go to school and not question what their teachers will tell them when it comes to history. But the expression "history is written by the victors" has some validity to it. Sometimes there's undeniable evidence a moment in history happened, and sometimes the truth is kind of warped or misleading. For many years, people were taught that Christopher Columbus discovered America in 1492, but this is extremely misleading, vague, and a downright lie. It's believed that America was originally settled by nomadic tribes crossing the Bering Land Bridge into Alaska tens of thousands of years ago. And then we have evidence of Viking explorers such as Leif Erikson crossing the Atlantic. There's also evidence of Vikings settling in L'Anse aux Meadows in Newfoundland in the 11th century, so Christopher Columbus wasn't even the first European to cross the Atlantic. If anything, his voyages led to colonization, conquest of natives, and Spain getting rich. Number 9. Paul Revere. Paul Revere is well known for his midnight ride, where he warned the American patriots that "the British are coming, the British are coming," which then allowed for an American victory in the Battle of Lexington and Concord. However, pretty much this entire story is false, and his famous quote would have been incorrect as well. First of all, the most common name used for British soldiers at this time would have been regulars, and there was no need to say that they were British. He was sent on a mission to alert the presence of British arrival, but so were about 40 other people on horseback, and he was in a group with about 2 other men. He actually became overwhelmed by their presence, fell off his horse, and was even detained temporarily by the Redcoats. The reality of what happened that night is less patriotic than the poem written by Henry Wadsworth Longfellow, so it probably is more enjoyable to teach this as a true account. Many believe Longfellow just simply picked Revere since it was easy to find words to rhyme with, such as near and here. Number 8. 13 Colonies. The 13 colonies of the United States. You hear it over and over again from your history teacher, but did you ever once ask them to actually count and name them all? It's easy to understand how to get this one mixed up because of the current states that made up the colonies before the Revolutionary War began. Delaware was actually never a separate colony, and that land that currently makes up this state was basically a county of Pennsylvania and was even a part of Maryland territory at some point. However, it was a part of Pennsylvania until the Revolutionary War began and was considered to be a lower county. It wasn't until 1776 that the government declared Delaware as an independent state from Philadelphia. So if your teacher ever refers to the 13 colonies before 1776, be sure to promptly correct them. Number 7. The Washington Cherry Tree. George Washington is certainly a man of legends. We see him all the time on the $1 bill, but how much do we really know about this guy? The separation of fact and fiction about the first president of the United States can often be blurred. You might have heard about the legend that states when he was 6, he was given a hatchet as a gift, and he proceeded to chop down his father's cherry tree. It was at this moment Washington confessed to his father that he cut it down and that he could never tell a lie. However, this is a completely fabricated lie in history, and the whole story was constructed by an early biographer by the name of Mason Locke Weems. Weems wanted George Washington to be portrayed as a role model for young Americans. The myth of Washington has endured for ages, probably because we find it to be a good story. Number 6. The Crossing of Delaware. This iconic painting has been a symbol of American bravery during the Revolutionary War and is in history books all across America. But is this an accurate depiction of George Washington crossing the Delaware River into Pennsylvania? It was painted by a German artist, Gottlieb Lutz, in 1851, so obviously he wasn't there at the time. The painting depicts George Washington standing tall in a tiny raft making its way through tiny icebergs. But when the Delaware River freezes, it tends to create more solid, large sheets of ice like we see in this image. Without criticizing too many small details, the little measly raft they're in is bogus, and Washington and his armies crossed in transport boats known as Durhams. These were constructed using iron ore and sturdy timber. Durham boats are about 40 feet long and didn't even have seats, so it's unclear why these people are sitting. Then we take a look over at the flag, and that's also wrong. This American flag wasn't used until a year later in 1777. There's also no evidence that the guy holding the flag, James Monroe, was ever in the same boat with Washington. What it lacks in historical accuracy, it actually makes up for with national pride. Number 5. Van Gogh cut off ear. While in school, learning about famous artists, we all know that Van Gogh was simply a madman who sliced off his ear and mailed it to his lover, right? Who would inflict so much physical pain on themselves over an ex? After looking through quite a few letters, it seems more than likely that him and a friend got into a scuffle involving too much French wine and a sword. Van Gogh was certainly no snitch and didn't want to report the incident that could potentially put his best friend in prison. Number 4. The Sphinx Nose. How did the Sphinx lose its nose? Did it get a bad rhinoplasty? Or was it shot off while Napoleon was invading Egypt and he used the nose as target practice for his cannons? The nose was gone centuries before Napoleon was even born. Napoleon was fascinated with Egyptology and sought to preserve Egypt's antiquities. The limestone used to construct the Sphinx eroded fairly quickly after a few thousand years had gone by. But don't forget, Egypt is a Muslim country where worshipping idols is not permitted. It's still a wonder how this monument is even here. Historical accounts from the 1400s say that religious leader Muhammad Sa'im al-Dar destroyed the nose when he saw people worshipping the Sphinx as an idol. Number 3. Viking horned helmets. Archaeologists have a better chance of finding a unicorn than finding a horned Viking helmet. Even the football team, the Vikings, have horns on their helmet. This is just a modern-day myth and an artist's portrayal of how Vikings actually looked while in battle. This portrayal began in the 1800s when Scandinavian artists such as Malmstrom and Mary McGregor included this style of helmet like we see in this illustration of Leif Erikson discovering Vinland. Horn helmets did exist, but these were from over thousands of years ago during the Bronze Age and used for ritualistic religious ceremonies. Number 2. Stonehenge. One of the biggest ancient mysteries in the world is certainly Stonehenge, and they've been standing in that formation for 5,000 years, right? Oh no, don't tell me this is a lie too. Could this all be some kind of cruel hoax? Historical records of the monument do date back to 1200 AD, but it's highly doubtful that they've been in the same position we see them today. A curator from Cambridge University quoted, "Nearly all the stones we see today have been moved in some way and are standing in concrete. This image we see here shows Stonehenge in 1877 with stones leaning on each other. Many monuments around the world must be restored at some point. This photo here shows some type of restoration project going on in 1898 with two men on top of a block that looks like it's being placed there with a crane. This photo shows the crane picking up the block, and you can certainly tell this is a massive restoration project. Take a look at the photos and just let us know what you believe." Number 1. First Thanksgiving. Sorry guys, American Eye has to ruin Thanksgiving for you too. And there's absolutely no truth to this one besides the feast itself, and what we celebrate couldn't be anything further from the truth. As a kid, you might have believed your teacher saying that Thanksgiving was a friendly celebration between Indians and Pilgrims who came together and feasted on turkey legs and corn, sharing farming secrets. Thanksgiving was basically a celebration after eventual retaliation on Native Americans, and it was celebrated around the same time each year. We won't get into too many details about this one, but if you know how history tended to go between European settlers and Native Americans, you can probably take a good guess. Anyways, don't let it keep you from enjoying stuffing and turkey, which also the Pilgrims never ate. Hey guys, thanks for watching, and be sure to hit that subscribe button for new videos every day.